Hello and welcome everyone to Random Fandom. I am your host Mayhem, and this is my little internet show where I like to get on and talk about all the things in the world of fandom, including comics, television, and in this particular episode, we're going to be specifically looking at movies. Going to be looking at the summer movie Roundup, all the stuff that's going to come out over the next few months to the big screen, and specifically the really big stuff, the stuff that I'm most interested in, the stuff that really falls into my wheelhouse. Obviously, there's tons of movies that come out throughout the summer months. Not going to be focusing on all of them. Might even be a few of the ones that you're personally looking forward to that I don't touch on here. That doesn't mean that I don't like them. That doesn't mean that I have anything against them or am insulting them. That just means that they're not the super anticipated ones that I am most looking forward to this coming summer of 2015. So the summer movie season really starts off with a bang, with what is probably going to be the best movie of the entire year. Starting the summer movie season, you probably already know what I'm going to be mentioning. It's May 1st, it's Avengers Age of Ultron. And, I mean, the hype about this movie is absolutely palpable. Everybody is already saying that it's amazing looking, just the trailers and the production stills and everything we know about it already. It just looks amazing all around. No matter what type of comic fan you are, no matter what type of movie fan you are, you have to be excited and pumped for this movie. I mean, the first Avengers was just so epically amazing. We've been waiting for the next installment. Here it is. You know, Ultron is an amazing, amazing villain, and I'm so looking forward to James Spader as the voice of Ultron. As soon as they announced that, I was like, done, sold. I mean, I was already sold on the Avengers sequels way before they even announced that it was going to be Ultron as a villain. But once they did, I was like, that's awesome. And then once it was announced that James Spader's doing the voice and most of the motion capture for Ultron, I'm like, okay, absolutely sold, 100%. This movie can practically do no wrong. Well, I mean, we'll see. They could potentially have problems associated with it, and I'll give my review of it once it comes out. But, I mean, that has to be the number one most hyped and most anticipated movie of all of 2015, no matter who you are. I mean, the first Avengers, third highest grossing movie of all time. And, you know, is this one going to even break that record? You know, they've just only been catching more momentum, the folks at Marvel and Disney, ever since the Phase 1 ended. So now we've got Phase 2 coming to an end with Avengers Age of Ultron. So I'm thinking it looks great, you know, so we'll have to see just how great it ends up being. So that's starting off the summer movie season on May the 1st. Then on May the 15th, we have one that I guess has been in the works for a while, but it kind of always escaped my notice for quite some time until the first trailer dropped. And I'm talking about Mad Max Fury Road. Yeah, I guess this has been something that's been coming for a while, obviously, because it's coming out this summer, so it's been completed for quite some time. But until the first trailer hit the internet, I had never even really knew they were doing a new Mad Max. And, you know, I've seen the originals. They're classic pieces of action cinema. Never been a super huge Mad Max fan. I know some people are. They get really crazy about how much they love, you know, the Road Warrior and stuff like that. And I've always liked it, but it's never been anything that's really permeated my personal fandom. But the trailer looks epic. Looks absolutely epic. Looks like they're paying the proper respect to the original feel of the world of Mad Max. The very desolated, you know, desert everywhere. There's no water everywhere. They've got some great casting. Tom Hardy is one of the best actors around right now, so he's a great person to take over the role of Mad Max. And Nicholas Hoult is in it, Charlize Theron, so it's looking like it's going to be a really good movie too. So looking forward to Mad Max Fury Road. I don't know so much about what the plot is necessarily going to be. It's probably going to end up having more or less the same plot as the original, right? Because they're revamping it, they're introducing Mad Max to an entirely new generation, so it's probably going to be along the same vein as the original. So that always is kind of hit and miss, you know, whenever they reboot a franchise or an old movie and they just remake it, it doesn't always work out too well. You know, like I'm thinking like maybe Total Recall, the Colin Farrell one, wasn't a huge fan of that one. So sometimes remakes are hit and miss. But the trailer, like I said, looks absolutely epic, looks really good, so I will definitely give Mad Max a go and see what they do with the remake there. That's May the 15th. The next week, May 22nd, is an interesting flick that's not usually the kind of thing that's in my wheelhouse, but I gotta say, I'm curious about it. And I'm talking about Tomorrowland, which comes out May 22nd. I guess the thing I'm interested about, the thing that's making me interested in it, is how little there is about the movie. You know, I saw I guess it was a teaser trailer for it, and they don't really have a full-scale 2-minute long preview for it or anything. It's just the teaser that I saw was a girl who, I guess she's at a police station or something, and she gets these personal effects, and one of them's like a little button with the Tomorrowland symbol on it, and she touches it, and it just like instantly teleports her somewhere completely different. And she lets go of the button, and then she's back in the police station. She touches it again, she's transported again. And I'm like, that's really interesting. Because that was it. I mean, that's all the teaser had in it. And I'm like, wow, that's really very interesting, and I'm kind of interested to see more. So I can't really say what the plot's going to be about necessarily. I think its synopsis is something like people find out they have this connection to this weird forgotten place, and they're trying to uncover the mysteries of it or something. That seems interesting to me. So we'll see. I can't really say if it's going to end up being a great movie or not so great. When they have projects like that where they're keeping everything so tightly under wraps to the point where you don't even really know the plot of a movie, it can sometimes be all about the hype, and then the execution's not that great. That happened, at least for me, that happened with Interstellar. So much build-up about how great Interstellar was going to be, Christopher Nolan's next big movie, but you never really knew what the movie was going to be about until the movie came out. And I saw it, and it was like, kind of lackluster. So this could go that way. Tomorrowland could be all about the secrecy and the hype, but then no payoff. But I'll at least give it a shot. So that's May 22nd, Tomorrowland. May 29th is going to be a movie that doesn't break a lot of records in terms of box office, because it's part of a series, but it's a movie series that I have thoroughly enjoyed ever since it started. And it's the next chapter of Insidious. Insidious Chapter 3. I love the first two movies. I've done videos before about horror on and off, and even though I love the horror genre, there's a lot of problems with the horror genre. And it seems like most horror movies these days are stuff like, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake after remake after remake, or remaking of Japanese horror movies, American style. And I don't care for, like, any of those, really. But the Insidious movies, I thought, were a real return to form of great, great ghost horror movies. First two Insidious movies, absolutely loved them, so I'm very much looking forward to now the third one. Even though it's a prequel, it doesn't, as far as I understand, it doesn't center around the same family that the first two movies were dealing with. And this third chapter takes place before those two movies, and it deals with a completely different set of people, a different set of ghosts, or a different situation altogether. But I'm still hoping that the Insidious feel is there. Because Insidious is one of the few movies that, in my adulthood, is able to still scare me. Because it's set such a creepy vibe and a creepy tone. And it's not just cheap jump scares. It's real, actual horror in a way that you don't see much these days in the theaters. So Insidious Chapter 3 on May 29th, definitely looking forward to that. Then in June the 12th, is probably after the Avengers, the second biggest and most anticipated movie of the entire summer. June 12th is Jurassic World, the fourth installment of the Jurassic Park franchise. This time, none of the original characters back, as far as I understand it. You know, the first movie and the third movie were all about Sam Neill's character, and then in the second movie you had Jeff Goldblum's character. This time around, the main character is somebody new, Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt, you'll probably remember, who played Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's taking over as the protagonist of Jurassic World. And I guess the plot of this one is sort of similar to previous installments where, you have this island of dinosaurs. It's been mostly closed off for several years, but now they're reopening it to the public. They think they found a way to make it safe for people to go and see these dinosaurs and stay safe and not be injured and not be killed by them all. And apparently that goes off the rails. Obviously, every time they try to open Jurassic Park, it just ends in people dying en masse. It was great fun the first 3 times they did it with the first 3 movies. I don't see any reason why this time it wouldn't be just as fun as the previous ones. So Jurassic Park has a great following, great fandom associated with it. A lot of people have loved that series ever since it started. This one, I don't see it being any different. So gonna be a big movie, gonna be a lot of fun, probably gonna be every bit as good as the previous ones, or at least I hope so. So June 12th, Jurassic World. Then July 3rd. So not a lot of other great stuff coming out in June, but we're jumping now to the July 4th weekend, July the 3rd. Of course, it's Terminator Genisys, the next installment of the Terminator franchise. I guess we got Arnold Schwarzenegger back on board for this one. He's not the main character this time, so I don't know how prominent of a role his Terminator character is, but I think it's probably... I have a feeling this one's going to be more along the lines of a combination of Terminator 3 and Terminator Salvation. Because in Terminator 3, we had the Terminator playing almost a secondary character role to John Connor's character, but then in Terminator Salvation, Kyle Reese was more of a prominent character. As I understand it, in Terminator Genisys, Kyle Reese is going to be the prominent character again, and he's going to be interacting with Schwarzenegger's Terminator character. Me personally, I think the Terminator series peaked with Terminator 2. And then also, I kind of really enjoyed the Sarah Connor Chronicles, the Terminator TV show, which unfortunately never got a second season. I thought it deserved a second season, and I would have really liked to see how they flesh stuff out there. But Terminator 3 didn't really blow my hair back all that much. And Terminator Salvation, while it had its moments, I kind of put it right in the same level of goodness as Terminator 3. Just didn't really blow my hair back too well. The characters in it were kind of flat. But we'll see with this next one. I mean, I'm certainly not writing off the entire Terminator series because the last 2 films weren't all that great to me. I'll certainly give this one a shot, give it a chance to redeem the franchise in my eyes. But, I mean, it's really hard to top Terminator 2. I still hold that to be one of the most perfect action movies, action sci-fi movies ever made. And I try not to hold the movies and TV shows that came after it in the Terminator series to that standard, because everything will fall short when compared to Terminator 2. But just the last couple ones didn't really do it for me. So I'm hoping Terminator Genisys rekindles the franchise, makes it awesome again, and so I'm definitely going to be looking forward to the July 4th weekend where Terminator Genisys comes out. Then on July 17th, we have the next Marvel movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and really the one that even before it ever came out is pretty much already decided to be the black sheep of the Marvel family. And of course I'm talking about AntMan. It's already the black sheep of the Marvel family because it's the first character movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that most people have really never heard of. Even though Ant-Man was a founding member of the Avengers, even though Captain America was not a founding member of the Avengers, technically speaking, Ant-Man was. He's been around since the very beginning of the Marvel Universe. He founded the Avengers along with Thor and Hulk and Wasp and Iron Man. But he's always sort of been a silly-sounding character, you know? For some reason, Spider-Man sounds awesome, but Ant-Man sounds silly. I don't really know why our brains work it that way, but Ant-Man just almost seems like a very silly name for a character and a silly concept. A character who can shrink to really small size. Well, how are you supposed to fight an enemy when you shrink down? Well, later on in the comics, he was able to grow to giant size as well, but I don't think that's going to play into this movie. I don't think he's going to be growing. He's really just going to be shrinking down. And that's just always been a really silly-seeming concept for a superhero. Sure, it's an amazing power to see somebody do, but it doesn't seem like it'd be that useful in fighting bad guys and supervillains and stuff like that. But I have always been a fan of the character of Ant-Man. Hank Pym especially, but also Scott Lang, both of those characters playing into this movie. Not so much because of his power set, and I will freely admit it's sort of a lackluster power set, but I've always been a fan of the character because of his intelligence, which rivals that of Tony Stark. You know, if Tony Stark is a genius inventor, well, Hank Pym is supposed to be smarter even than that. He's a genius inventor himself, and he's really on the same level as Reed Richards, as Mr. Fantastic, in contention for potentially the smartest person in the entire Marvel Universe. So I've always liked the character because of all the technology that he creates, all the different inventions that he makes. And so I've always been a fan of the character, and never really thought I would see them actually turn Ant-Man into his own movie. I thought maybe he'd get slapped into an Avengers movie someday, something like that. Never thought he'd get a solo movie. Now, like I said, this is already considered to be the black sheep of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. People are already saying, you know, it's not going to do very well. You know, just because it has the Marvel stamp on it, it will make its money back, but it's probably not going to be super successful like all the other ones. And we'll have to wait and see as far as that goes. But I'm, at this point, really willing to give Marvel Studios and Disney the benefit of the doubt where it comes to any of their superhero movies, because they haven't really steered me wrong yet. You know, the worst movie in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least in my opinion, Iron Man 2, is still better than most other action movies. You know, it's the worst of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, but if I were to rate it on a 1 to 10 scale, I'd still probably end up giving it a 7. It wasn't absolutely horrid, it was just not as good as the awesome Marvel Cinematic Universe movies that came before it and then after it. So, you know, Marvel Studios has built up enough goodwill for me that I'm willing to give them the chance. And we know that Marvel Studios can make awesome movies out of lesser-known properties, and lesser-known properties that most people rolled their eyes at initially. Everybody rolled their eyes at Guardians of the Galaxy when it was first announced. Everybody rolled their eyes at the idea of a talking raccoon firing guns and thinking it was going to be silly and stupid, and there's no way it could ever work. They made it work, and then some. They made it the most awesome movie of last year. And so you really got to give them the benefit of the doubt here, at least until the movie comes out and we see whether or not it ends up being awesome or lackluster. So, enough with the naysaying about Ant-Man. You got to give it a chance. Marvel Studios has earned that chance to overcome the notion that Ant-Man's a silly character. So July 17th is Ant-Man. And then we skip ahead to August, and August 7th, and another comic book movie, this time the Fantastic Four. I don't think I have ever seen a comic-based movie that has had so much bad press before as this one, as the Fantastic Four reboot. It's not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so it's not being done by Marvel Studios or Disney. It's being done by Fox. And it's been getting a lot of bad press for a variety of reasons. Most notably, it's been getting a lot of bad press. It seems like the thing that people talk about the most is the casting of the Human Torch. They cast Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch. They cast a black man as Johnny Storm, with the rest of the characters being white. And it really seems to be a problem for people, not just because the original character is white, but also because his sister, Sue Storm, is on the team, and she's being played by Kate Mara, a white woman. I have no necessary problem with Michael B. Jordan playing the role of Johnny Storm, with Johnny Storm being recast as black. The only thing that throws me in that regard at all is that if the Human Torch is going to be black, the Invisible Woman should be as well, because they're brother and sister. Well, they're changing it around this time and making it so they are adopted siblings rather than blood-related siblings. That explains it, I suppose, but that's such the most minor thing about the movie. I have a lot of initial problems with this movie. I'm not particularly looking forward to it. I've stated, and I'm probably going to hold to it, that I don't intend to see this movie at all when it comes to theaters, because of so many things I've heard about it that I don't care for. But I wanted to talk about it because, you know, it's a comic book movie. It's directly in my wheelhouse, so I got to talk about it to some degree, and why I'm so incredibly underwhelmed by everything I've seen and not looking forward to it, to the point where I don't even really want to give it a chance. Has nothing to do with the casting of Michael B. Jordan, but has everything to do with everything else about the movie. For starters, the complete and total disrespect to the source material. Now, I've said many times before that when you turn a comic book into a movie, you have a lot of leeway to change all kinds of things. But I think a certain amount of respect to the source material is very, very important. You don't have to try to do an exact, faithful recreation of the comic, but you do have to have a certain respect to the original, to the source material. And just yesterday, I read an article online with an interview with Miles Teller, who's playing Mr. Fantastic, where he said that the filmmakers told him and the rest of the cast, don't read any of the comics because we don't want you doing essentially the characters from the comics. We're trying to do something different from the comics. And, I mean, that's just got to set off red flags. Anytime anybody is making a movie based on a comic book and they specifically tell their actors, don't read the comics because we don't want you to be doing the characters from the comics, that's just, you're doomed to failure right there. No pun intended when I say doomed to failure. But, so that's absolutely strike one right there. Then when it comes to their mistreatment of the characters, specifically Doctor Doom, easily one of the best comic book villains ever made, and one of the things that makes him so great is he's very egotistical, but he has a right to his egotism, because he's not only one of the most genius, brilliant people in the entire world, he's also the monarch of his own country. You know, that's got to be an ego boost for anybody when you are the king, the ruler of your own sovereign nation. Is that what they're doing in this movie? No. They've reduced him down to a hacker. He's just a guy who, you know, lives in his mother's basement hacking websites and calling himself Doom on the internet. That is such a disrespect to one of the most epic, awesome villains in all of comicdom. They turn a monarch, genius, scientific genius, magical powerhouse into a computer hacker. That's so weak, and when I first found that out, I'm like, this has to be a joke. They have to be joking. They're not doing this to Doom, are they? And it turns out they are. So it's like, that's a big strike too. And then, beyond that, when it comes to what they're basing these characters and this version of Fantastic Four on, if they're basing it on any of the comics, they're basing it on the Ultimate Universe comics, where these characters are all teenagers, like fresh out of high school. And that's really got to be strike three. Anything that's based on the Ultimates needs to be considered bad right off the bat. I hate the Ultimates. I hate the Ultimate Universe of comics, of Marvel Comics. And I don't want to see Mr. Fantastic and Ben Grimm as 19, 20-year-olds fresh out of high school kids. That's just so not these characters. You know, Ben Grimm is supposed to be a grizzled war vet guy. He's supposed to be an Air Force commando who is an expert at piloting airplanes and space shuttles, and he's supposed to be that kind of more matured, seasoned, grizzled veteran. And Mr. Fantastic is supposed to be this well-seasoned scientific genius who's not just somebody who has a high IQ. You know, that's kind of Peter Parker's deal. He's a kid who just happens to be a real scientific genius, but no, Reed Richards is supposed to be the guy who's done the legwork. He's supposed to be the guy who's been around doing studies and doing experiments and doing research for decades already. He's supposed to be a well-accomplished scientific genius, not somebody who's just starting out. You know, that's just so taking away from the characters as I have always known them. And it's one thing to say, you know, they want to do their own thing. They don't want to stick so much to what's been done in the past, because there have been 2 previous Fantastic Four movies. They want to make their own thing, sure. But when you have these pre-existing characters who have been around for over 50 years and have all kinds of people who know these characters inside and out and love these characters as they exist on the page, and then you make a movie version that does not resemble the characters as they are on the page to almost any degree, except an offshoot version of the characters from the Ultimate Universe, you got problems. So we'll see if that weekend, the weekend of August 7th when that movie comes out, if I'm bored enough and I decide I want to give the movie a shot, I may go see it. But as it stands right now, I'm kind of sticking with my notion that I don't even want to give them my money and up the grosses on that movie at all. I really want it to do poorly enough that they scrap the already made plans for a sequel, and I know that's judging a movie before it comes out, and I shouldn't do that. I should give it at least a shot, but I really don't like anything I've seen about that movie so far. But August 7th, you know, you may be different. You may want to give it a shot. Let me know what you think about all the positive and mostly negative press surrounding the Fantastic Four movie. Last movie on this summer movie roundup, coming August 21st, is another horror movie sequel that I want to talk about, and it's Sinister 2. I talked about the Insidious franchise and how I really liked it. I also really liked the first movie in the Sinister series. The first Sinister movie starring Ethan Hawke. I thought it was very much along the same lines as Insidious. Thought it was just as good. Nice and scary. Return to form for horror movies in a way that hasn't really been seen much aside from Insidious. Creepy feel, you know, really scary kind of ghost and everything. So I really enjoyed the first Sinister, and I'd be interested to see where they go with a sequel. It's a little different than Insidious in that the entire Insidious movie, all through all of those movies, you knew what was happening, you knew what the ghost wanted, you knew what they were after. But the Sinister movie, I won't give anything away, but it has a little bit of a twist ending to it. And once you've seen the first Sinister movie, now you know how that ghost works and what he does. I wonder if the next movie is going to be is going to have the same feel to it, because that ending of the first Sinister movie was kind of a bit of a shock, a surprise, took you back a little bit about what happens. But now that we know that that's probably what's going to happen again, is it going to have the same level of shock that the first one did? But I'm definitely going to give it a shot to see, because I love the first Sinister movie. So Sinister 2, sort of closing out the summer movie season, the last movie in the month of August that I'm really jazzed about seeing. And so that brings this summer movie roundup for the summer of 2015 to a close. Let me know down below what you think about the movies that I've talked about, whether you're looking forward to them or not. If there's any movies that I didn't mention that you're really looking forward to and you'd like to mention, throw that down below as well. Specifically, let me know what you think about the Fantastic Four. I ranted about that one for quite a while. Are you looking forward to it? Are you not? But talk about any of the summer movies you like. And thanks for paying attention and watching. I'll see everybody next time on the next edition of Random Fandom.